My name's James and I'm a shipwreck treasure hunter. Join me in my quest above
Holy shit!
and below the waves, in search of the thousands of undiscovered and ancient shipwrecks that lay off the South Devon coastline. In today's video, we're heading to a distant location in search of one of South Devon's most historic shipwrecks, the Royal Navy's 242-year-old warship, the HMS Crocodile. In 1784, this 24-gun, 6th-rate ship of the line was on its return journey from Bombay, India, via the Isles of Scilly, when a thick fog rolled in and she struck the rocks here at Prawle Point. Now this site is only accessible by boat, and Prawle Point is a very long way away from where I am in Brixham, so we better get going. As we leave the sheltered waters of Torbay, even on a reasonably calm day, it gets pretty bouncy out here, especially as we pass areas like the mouth of the River Dart, and we make the crossing from the Dart to Start Point, which will take us miles out into the open seas. Now here in the UK, we get very big tides, where an incredible amount of water surges its way up the English Channel. As this water current hits areas like the headland at Start Point and Prawle Point, it squeezes the current, forcing its way around, which dramatically increases its speed, creating dangerous currents, making Prawle Point a very hazardous area to dive, and it can only be done reasonably safely at certain times of the tide, and if I get it wrong, it could easily wash me away from my boat and leave me stranded out at sea. Well, it's definitely been a long and rather jarring journey, but eventually we start closing in on Start Point. Oh, goodness. My legs! Well, we've just made a little stop off by Start Point Lighthouse. What we're going to do is just check my fuel. We're about 3/4 of the way there, and this actually marks the furthest I've ever been on this boat, so from here on out is uncharted territory for me. I've got a little can of fuel with me, and I'm just going to double check what we've got, because I want to make sure that we've got plenty to get there and back again. Well, it looks like we've burnt about just under half of our fuel, so it's definitely going to be a little bit closer than I was hoping, but we've got a good few more miles to go, but we should, fingers crossed, be all right. Let's do it. Well, the great news is we've made it here, finally, and I can even spot a bit of old wreckage up there on the cliffs from a much more modern shipwreck. The not so great news is the fuel is definitely going to be a bit touch and go. We can pull in at Dartmouth and get some more if we're desperate, so it's not the end of the world, but I'd really rather not, as I kind of want to get back for the school run. And the really not so good news is I'm already starting to need a wee, so let's get this anchor shot and let's get in there. Well, somewhere down there is the HMS Crocodile, and we're going to go and have a good look around. I've covered the anchoring and how I do it safely, solo diving, in one of my other videos. Just look out for the thumbnail where I'm all cut up, and the video where I fell off the cliff will explain it if you're interested in that. But we're in about 20 feet of water, so I'm going to let out about 3 times the amount of anchor rope, so about 60 feet, maybe a little bit more to be on the safe side. Then we're going to dive down, follow the rope down, kind of like a shot line, and check the anchor's nice and secure before we set off. Let's get it shot. As I follow the anchor line down, it's clear this whole area of seabed is solid rock covered in an immense kelp forest with deep rock gullies carving their way through this rocky seabed. I can see my anchor rope disappearing down into one of these deep gullies, but what appears out from the depth I really wasn't expecting. Wow, look at that, it's a common octopus. What a stunning creature, and this one seems to be missing a couple of legs. Now these guys are incredibly intelligent, apex predators that only really have to worry about humans and grey seals, which is probably where it lost its 2 tentacles. Now any wreckage is most likely to have fallen down into the rock gullies, so let's get down there and start having a good look around. It's not long until we start to spot some wreckage. However, this is not 242 years old, and it's definitely not from the HMS Crocodile. This has in fact come from one of the many other ships that have met their end on these rocks, and if I had to guess, I'd say it's most likely from the 420-ton Hay that was overwhelmed by hurricane force winds in 1979 on her way from Cornwall to West Germany. She was fully loaded with China clay and was drifting out of control, getting ever closer to Prawle Point. And just as the crew had given up all hope of rescue and began to accept their real fate, with just moments to spare, the Coast Guard helicopter arrived and performed a daring rescue, winching the crew from the deck of the ship just seconds before she smashed into the rocks. Now this is where the problem lies. There are actually over 34 ships that have been wrecked at Prawle Point. So to find the remains of a ship that sank over 242 years ago, where unfortunately all the ship's timbers have long rotted away, so all that's left will be some artefacts buried on the seabed. And sadly the case with a lot of these older shipwrecks is some of the information is being lost to time, and in all my research in old shipwreck books and online I still don't know its exact location, so what I really need is help of a local expert. And during all my research, 2 names keep popping up again and again, is Terry Crocker and Terry Scott, who actually own the shipwreck and have done historical projects on her for many years. Now I actually managed to track down Terry Scott and reach out to him on social media, although at this time I'm still waiting for a response. Wow, look at the size of this massive octopus. As I get some shots of this amazing creature, he notices me, and this one is definitely not shy and starts coming straight towards me. So I decide to give him plenty of space. Now unfortunately it's getting to that time of the dive where my air is very low and my safe dive window for today has come to an end. So it's time for me to get out. On the journey back, I'm definitely a little bit disappointed that I haven't managed to locate the wreck, but I was always aware that it wasn't going to be an easy task, to say the least. But as luck would have it, that evening my phone rings and it's Terry Scott. Hello? Hey, is that Terry? Oh, thank you so much for getting back to me, mate. We have a brief conversation where he explains to me that he's been very busy, but he'll put together all the information that he has for me and send it in an email as soon as he has time. Terry also goes on to say that the wreck is pretty much directly below the Coast Guard lookout building at the top of the cliffs. Excited with this small piece of new information, I draw out a new search area, and a few days later we're back off to Prawle Point. As I enter back into the water, I'm actually about 30 minutes too early before the strong currents die down and for it to be safe to dive. Now this new search area is unfortunately right in the path of some of the strongest currents. Luckily I'm a well-experienced diver and I use the landscape to my advantage, dropping down into one of the rock gullies to give me some shelter from the worst of the intense current that's rushing by just above my head. While I wait for it to die down, let's get the metal detector out and start having a good hunt around. It's not long until I get a signal and I pull out this item, which I'm pretty sure is part of a diver's weight belt or something similar. Not long afterwards I get another hit, which unfortunately turns out just to be a fishing weight. I also spotted this small fragment of pottery, and this thing could be very old. By this point the current has started to die down, so I make my way out of the gullies and start searching around the area for any remains of the wreck. I was so sure this was the right area that even once I run out of air, I switched over to a second tank and went in for a second dive. I thoroughly searched every inch of this search area, where unfortunately all I found was a huge shackle and this amazing spiny lobster. These guys are actually extinct across pretty much the whole of the UK due to overfishing, and have only recently started to make a comeback, and this is actually the first one of these I've ever seen. Now, with no choice but to call it a day, after hours of travel and multiple dives, I'm still no closer to finding the wreck. Luckily, I'm a very calm person and I don't allow myself to get frustrated.
Where is she?
And with the cost of fuel, harbour fees and air refills all starting to mount up, I really need to plan my next move carefully. So I dive back into the research, and finding this wreck really does start to become an obsession for me. All of a sudden I come across a document detailing the sale of the wreck to the two Terrys. As I scroll down I see it. It's the coordinates of the wreck. As I type them into the map and the location comes up, I'm not 100% sure this is the exact location, as it seems a bit far out and it's pretty close to where I've just searched and I didn't find anything. But what happens next is amazing. No way, I can't believe it. We've just received the email from Terry Scott that I've been waiting for, with all the information for the HMS Crocodile. Now, Terry's a very busy man, and I wasn't sure how long it was going to take him to put all this email together and send it to me. That's partly why I've been doing all this research and been back to the wreck site so many times. But oh, I am so excited. Let's have a look. Oh wait, it's all here. Finds from the seabeds, coins, musket shot, cannonballs. And most importantly, there it is, the exact location of the wreck from the man himself.
Yes!
Now I am really excited, but as I check the weather it's not looking good, with strong winds forecast through the night and to get worse over the next 5 days. But as luck would have it, there's a very small weather window very early tomorrow morning, which should just about give us enough time to get there, do a single dive and get back, but it's definitely going to be close.
Third trip out, let's go get this wreck.
As we make our descent down for the final dive, I've anchored the boat as close as I dare to Gull Rock, where the wreck of the HMS Crocodile is located, and taken a compass bearing that I can follow as I make my way there. And I know from my research that the wreckage is scattered across the seabed from Gull Rock across to the west, so I drop down into a rock gully about 50 metres west. And straight away I came across this huge piece of lead, and lead is an incredibly versatile metal that has many uses on these old shipwrecks, like patching up holes in the hull. So I decided to break out the metal detector and it's not long before I find a second huge piece of lead. We're definitely on the right track. But as I move into the next gully, holy crap guys, take a look at this shark. This thing must be about 5 foot long, and this is actually a greater cat shark, also known as a bullhuss. And these things are full of aggression. If I was to accidentally startle this guy and wake him up, or try and grab him, he wouldn't hesitate to turn around and give me a bite. So let's leave this fella to his sleep and carry on with my search. Where I get a hit on the metal detector and I find this really interesting shaped copper artifact. And as I keep looking, I find a second one. I'm really not sure what these are, but as always, we'll take a much closer look at these and anything else we find in my workshop at the end of the video. No way, it's our friend again, the octopus that's missing 2 legs. What are the chances of seeing him on the first dive and now on the last one? Now I'm approaching Gull Rock where the ship was actually wrecked, and this is right at the tip of Prawle Point where the current is actually at its strongest. And as I enter, I'm definitely getting thrown around a bit and even struggling to stop my camera tripod from being pushed over by the strong current. It definitely feels like being inside a washing machine, but pretty much straight away I noticed this copper nail. Wow, what an absolutely awesome find. This was actually used for attaching the copper sheathing to the ship's hull, and these things were individually hand forged. I soon noticed that there are 3 octopus around me and this huge ballan wrasse that literally has been watching me the whole time, and I can't help imagining that these guys are like the guardians of the shipwreck. Don't mind me fellas. I've got to say my excitement is off the chart when I find a second nail. It feels so good to be on the actual site where the ship went down. And whilst having a good rummage around amongst some of the more modern wreckage that's mixed in with the older stuff, all of a sudden I see it. Holy crap guys, it's a freaking cannonball! Now for me this is one of the holy grail items of shipwreck hunting, a cannonball that has travelled around the world and gone down with a ship. Wow, the stories this thing could tell, well you're definitely coming home with me. So let's break out my big bag that I carry around on me on every dive, but I barely ever get to use. Now in all this excitement I've just noticed that my air is incredibly low. This has been an absolutely awesome dive, but unfortunately it's time to go. Right, we've made it back to my workshop. I've got everything that we found laid out on the bench behind me. I was absolutely over the moon to locate this wreck finally, and to find that cannonball right at the end really was the icing on the cake for me. But it definitely didn't come without its challenges, one being just the sheer distance it is to Prawle Point, and I actually racked up over 120 nautical miles travelling there and back through this video, and on a small boat, that's definitely a bit of an achievement in itself. But it's really awesome now to know the exact location of the wreck, so in some future videos we can come back, you know, and really concentrate on finding some interesting items that will still be down there on the seabed. And what else is fantastic is to know that I can make it out some of these wreck sites that are a lot further away, you know, and have time to do a dive or two and then make it back again is absolutely incredible. But let's not mess around, let's have a look at what we got. Well, this was everything that we found. We've got our cannonball in this bucket of fresh water here. Where this thing's been on the seabed in the marine environment for so many hundreds of years, if I was to just leave it on the side in the air, within a month or so, it'd completely disintegrate and just be dust. There'd be nothing left. So it needs to be put in some fresh water and changed regularly for at least a year, maybe 2, you know, before it can be brought out and got used to being in the open air again. But we found these 2 copper items as well, and I'm really not sure what they are, but they're definitely copper. As you can see, they're a lot darker and more red in colour than like a bronze or a brass. And this one's got some sort of serration on it where, you know, I think possibly it's been driven in something, some wood of some sort, but I'm really not sure. And this one is a sort of a similar thing but a bit finer. But like again, I'm really not sure what they are. Maybe some tooling or some sort of something on the ship. Well, as always, if there's anything here that you recognise, like these two items, please don't hesitate to let me know in the comment sections below, as well as if there's anything you enjoyed or didn't like about the video. I'd always love to hear you guys' feedback, and I know I say it in every video, but chatting to everybody in the comment section after these videos come out really is a highlight for me and something I genuinely look forward to, so thank you so much for that. And then we've got these two copper nails, and these things are amazing. These were hand forged individually, and what their purpose was to hold the copper sheathing on the sides of these ships on the hulls, and it would stop seaweed growth from building up and make these ships a lot faster in the water. And at the time, this was a cutting edge technology, and I'm pretty sure the HMS Crocodile was one of the first ships of the Royal Navy to be fitted out with this copper sheathing. So these are absolutely incredible, and some of these have actually said to have had a Royal Navy broad arrow mark on the top, and I've cleaned these up, but there's definitely some sort of mark in there, but it's really a little bit too hard to tell, but absolutely incredible. So without further ado, let's have a look at this cannonball. Now look at this thing, it's absolutely incredible, and I mean, you don't get much more iconic than from these old wrecks than a cannonball. And where this thing is a ferrous metal, it builds up like a natural concretion over time and like decades of being under the water, and anything that it's laid near to will actually get absorbed into that concretion, and that's where you can see this item here is possibly, you know, a bit of sheathing from the ship, and this round item in here as well, I think it's possibly another copper nail, and there could be some other bits in here. So, you know, so let's get the hammer and let's just gently knock off this concretion and see if there's any other goodies inside. Right, well here it is, all cleaned up. The two items that were in the concretion did actually turn out to be a bit of copper sheathing from the hull and this copper nail, and these things are absolutely fascinating. You think these are all actual parts of the HMS Crocodile that went down all that time ago, and to now be sitting in my hand and in my workshop is just absolutely awesome. But the real star of the show for me is this cannonball. This thing is a real piece of naval history right here. 242 years this thing sat on the seabed, travelled around the world to Bombay, India and all over the place to end up sitting there for all that time, just to eventually be found by us at the end of this video, and then go on another voyage from Prawle Point. You know, the first time it's moved in centuries back to Brixham is just honestly absolutely blows my mind, and this is, you know, what it's all about for me. And I just want to say a huge thank you to Terry Scott and Terry Crooker for allowing me to dive the wreck, which actually belongs to them, and for also to Terry Scott for all of his help in finding the wreck. It really was, the information he sent me was priceless, so thank you so much for that, mate. Right, well that's about it for this video. I really hope you've enjoyed joining me as much as I've absolutely loved bringing you guys along with me. There's actually another wreck at this same location, one of the many, called Daboot, which went down with a cache of uncut diamonds that have never been found, but that's a whole nother story. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to hit that like button, consider subscribing to our channel, and definitely don't forget to switch the notification bell on so you don't miss out on any of our future videos coming up. You can also check out some of our other content that should be popping up on the screen now, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Cheers!